Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Friday, September 8th, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card that we are starting our day off with today is King of Pentacles. We love to see this energy today. Masculine coming forward from a space of stability. A lot of concentration today on stability, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. As we saw yesterday, there was a moment for the masculine energy that wasn't in partnership that may have been feeling a little bit overwhelming as you potentially consider how to come towards feminine right now. But what we're really seeing is today is a day that masculine is really kind of recalibrating, just working on that feeling of stability as you go forward from this point. For feminine right now, this is potentially having a lot of direction and manifestation towards masculine energy that is embodying these qualities and characteristics right now. As you may have been seeing, since we came out of this Venus in retrograde cycle, feminine energy is keeping a lot of priority in terms of what creates points of stability for them at this moment. This is really looking towards masculine energy to identify if they're coming through in this vibration. Now, for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in partnership, we did see that the masculine energy was leaning a lot very heavily yesterday on feminine energy. And this is what the masculine was effectively providing the feminine energy, that was providing a level or degree of emotional support to masculine. Masculine is doubling down in terms of building that level and degree of stability. Continuing to get cards for our 5-card spread. Second card to clarify this card for today is, where is the masculine and why is the masculine working right now on this level and degree of stability? Well, we're seeing here coming through right now that there's some anxieties as it relates to points of discomfort, potentially around the immediate environment right now. For masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership, we saw this a lot in the cards yesterday. As I indicated, we did see the fact that there may have been some situations or circumstances that were arising, specifically in the area of trying to find some comfort in solitude. This could even be looking right now about making some adjustments right now in the immediate environment to build a better degree of comfort as you proceed forward from this point. For masculine, this is something that you're potentially trying to find a very practical solution to right now. While for feminine, this is potentially something that you are working to articulate to the masculine, hoping that they can come through with some sort of solution. For feminine and masculine energy in partnership right now, this could be very much a practical conversation about space and what you feel comfortable around at this time. While for energies that are not in partnership, this is going to feel a little bit different, because what we're really seeing here is there is a level and degree of potential frustration that is arriving right now in your immediate space, in your immediate environment. You will note that one of the things that we saw yesterday was the fact that for both masculine and feminine energy, there was a feeling of not finding that comfort in solitude. As we often see with hermit energy can only be maintained for small portions of time. Once you go into too much hermit mode, it can start to feel a little bit triggering. It can start to feel a little bit frustrating. One of the things that we've been seeing for the feminine energy right now was the fact that while they're coming out of that Venus in retrograde cycle, feeling somewhat guarded, feeling somewhat in a space and place where they're effectively closed off to a certain degree from masculine energy, but doing so to call their own energy back. This is potentially now coming through right now with the feminine energy trying to navigate a space or place where you do not want to be in a space where you are isolating to a degree that you can't allow in new offers and opportunities. But what we really see for the feminine right now is there's a moment of integration that is effectively occurring, trying to balance that point in terms of leaving, maintaining healthy boundaries as it relates to masculine opportunities and offers. These are either offers from the past that are coming towards feminine right now, or new offers that are coming towards the feminine right now. But in both cases, feminine energy is trying to find that middle ground in terms of making sure that they're allowing in offers and opportunities that aren't going to re-trigger them or cause any new traumas. For feminine right now, this is potentially a moment of feeling some frustration. You could even be seeing for a lot of the feminine energy right now, a lot of care and degree that's going to potentially be spent around the home, around making adjustments to the home, because this is the externalization point of some of that internal frustration that we saw was coming through on the feminine yesterday. For masculine, this is potentially also a way that you are effectively navigating some of your own frustration right now, potentially and particularly in the realm of not being in any type of partnership with feminine right now. This could be a lot of moving through some of that frustration energy by addressing it in a practical way. However, for masculine and feminine energy right now in partnership, this could also be identifying a space and place where feminine is effectively having to articulate to masculine what you feel comfortable with. There is a level and degree here of the feminine seeing and recognizing the fact that some of the masculine energy that is coming to them right now is coming from a state and place of trying to build further stability. However, one person's stability may not necessarily feel the same as another person's stability, and that is some of the boundary line that we are seeing right now between the masculine and feminine energy. There could be a lot of conversations right now about what lies in between those 2 points. What masculine feels is stable and secure versus what does not feel stable or secure to feminine, maybe potentially even quite the opposite. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Third card that we have coming through in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our 6 of Swords in its reversal. We love to see this card right now, especially and particularly in combination with our 9 of Pentacles in its reversal. Because one of the things that we are seeing is this is trying to come into a state of easement. We've been seeing this degree and this desire to come into a state of easement over the last few days for both masculine and feminine energy. But we also identified yesterday that there is a need and capacity that both masculine and feminine energy need to shed the grief and the fears and the doubts of the past in order to find a viable way forward. For feminine energy, this is proving to be a little bit more difficult, is what we see. We've been seeing that over the last few days, feminine has been working on trying to relieve themselves of some of this stress, of some of this trauma. Masculine in partnership right now is potentially recognizing and seeing the fact that feminine is doing this work and is doing everything necessary to potentially try to support the energy in that specific way. Though even they themselves are also potentially experiencing this. This is some of that mutually shared burden that we're seeing right now in the energies that are in divine union partnerships. While for masculine and feminine energy that are not in partnership right now, this is one of the dividing lines that's potentially preventing some of this energy from coming into union right now. Because what we're really identifying and seeing right now is, again, the masculine, as we've been seeing over the last few days, is trying to come towards feminine from a state of authenticity, from a state of stability, doing everything possible right now to really articulate to the feminine that this is something that they can depend upon and that feels real and feels solid and feels stable. Feminine, for their parts, is feeling a point of anxiety still as it relates to what the masculine is bringing in. And one of the articulation points that potentially is going to be occurring right now between masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership is identifying the difference between what masculine may consider stable versus what it feels like on the part of feminine. So being able to have that optics of observation right now between these two energies is going to be very key, because what we're really seeing here for the feminine is trying to articulate this so that they can shed some of these grief, some of that anxiety, some of these fears. Feminine energy could even be articulating to masculine right now where the source of some of these difficulties and hurdles and fears arise from, so that masculine can come forward in more of a supportive way. Because we did identify yesterday that masculine was truly trying to understand and identify what they needed to bring forth to the feminine for the feminine to feel more stable going forward. Fourth card coming through for today in our 5-card spread is 2 cards coming out for our 5-card spread. We love to see these 2 cards in combination. 4 of Wands in its upright, as well as our 5 of Cups. So this is going to feel like a little bit of bittersweet energy is what we're seeing here. We've been seeing that there has been a release process over the last few days, trying to unburden oneself of any traumas from the past, any grief, any fear. Feminine energy has been doing a lot of work in this capacity over the last few days, in or out of partnership. Feminine energy that is not in partnership right now recognizes that carrying over some of these doubts and fears and griefs from the past, grievances from the past, is potentially blocking, as we indicated, new opportunities to be able to come towards the feminine energy at this time. This is why feminine energy is doing a lot of this work. And again, as we indicated, to the masculine energy observing the feminine in this capacity, it could feel like a lot of inactivity that you feel like you're seeing from that feminine energy. But what's really going on under the surface is feminine energy is in a state or place of consideration at this time. They're really considering what is coming from the masculine energy, trying to identify if it's coming from a state or place of stability, and having to articulate potentially today the difference between what masculine may be trying to bring forth to feminine that they feel is stable versus what feminine actually needs right now. Because something that we're seeing here is showing that disparity point between the masculine's level of stability and the stability of the feminine at this time. For masculine, this is a moment of truly identifying kind of the gap in between, if you will. And it is creating a moment that feels both positive and negative, right? Because it is requiring a moment of readjustment. It is requiring a point of reorientation. There could potentially even be right now in the energy that is working through this, a type of or space of mutual acceptance and understanding of the situation as you presently find it. But here is the positive note. There could be also an articulation on the fact that there can be a point of easement going forward. So that point of understanding, that point of shared grief or frustration in terms of something that feels like it's not necessarily in alignment at this exact moment, but a feeling of optimism that is coming through right now as it relates to something that can be adjusted to make something in a point of easement in the future. This is either going to be something that feels like it's in the short-term future or the long-term future, but there is a bit of that bittersweet energy here as you understand the space and place between. Now, for masculine and feminine energy that is currently in partnership, this is going to be potentially a lot of planning that is coming into play today, having to identify the points of frustration, potentially even identifying some of the points of frustration that you're potentially feeling in your immediate environment. There could even be something here that you would feel or identify isn't working in some tangible degree. Potentially, we are seeing here that feminine is potentially even bringing some of this towards masculine right now to see if there are solutions that can be brought into play. Masculine is feeling in a space right now a little bit more of a sense of comfort around these things. This is coming through a little bit more from the feminine energy. But we see for both, there is this point of kind of having to resign yourself to a certain extent to the situation that you find yourself in the moment. But this is feeling like a lot of practical work and setting plans going forward. This point of mutual potential agreement and partnership about what you can accommodate, where you can adjust, making and setting some of these plans so that things can be more positive as you go forward from this point. While for the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership, this could be feeling like a little bit more of a difficult space, because what we are really identifying at this time is there's something here that doesn't feel like it can be immediately corrected. There's something here that is like a huge hurdle between these situations and circumstances. Masculine energy is feeling a lot more comfortable around the circumstances and situations. We're seeing that here with this Page of Pentacles. Feminine is really potentially articulating a lot of what they're not comfortable with right now. Masculine is in a moment right now of potentially wanting to alleviate some of these doubts and fears to a certain extent, but there is this mutual shared acceptance right now of frustration in terms of the difference between what is feeling comfortable for feminine at this moment versus what is feeling uncomfortable for feminine at this moment versus what is potentially feeling perfectly fine and comfortable for masculine at this time. Continuing to get clarification, fifth card in our 5-card deck spread for today is Knight of Wands in its reversal. So this is a little bit of a frustration point that we're seeing, because what we're seeing here is there's some energy right now potentially around the masculine that feels like a little bit of a letdown is what we're seeing. Because one of the things that we are identifying and recognizing right now is that masculine energy is trying to feel some of that creative spark. They're trying to like push forward to a certain degree as it relates to their passion and communication. Masculine energy potentially feeling a little bit of a blocker in in these areas today. Potentially because what we are identifying from feminine energy is this moment or this capacity of masculine basically trying to say, I feel very comfortable in this situation or circumstance we find ourselves in. Feminine is effectively saying, I'm not. There's some point of adjustment that needs to be reached. Masculine is working to help the feminine energy shed these doubts and fears, and it is requiring some adjustment. But we're also seeing that some of that adjustment that is required right now feels like it is immediately still potentially blocking the masculine energy from being able to pursue their full degree of passion and desire at this time. So this is some of that frustration that's potentially coming through right now, even for the energies that are in partnership, that are working through some of these hurdles and difficulties, because this is really identifying some of that separation point between what masculine is considering potentially an ideal right now, as specifically as it relates to like very practical matters right now. Feminine is in the opposite space. Feminine is showing a level of dissatisfaction in that area. So this is going to feel like a little bit of frustration that we're seeing even in the partnered energies today. While for masculine and feminine that are not in partnership, this is that blockage. This is that passion blockage. This is feminine, again, trying to do the work of laying in the boundaries that they were working through during that Venus in retrograde cycle. Because what did we learn that feminine was trying to do? Feminine was trying not to overgive into situations and circumstances where they don't feel seen, appreciated, and valued. Feminine energy came back on the table yesterday, was showing up in a very big way by articulating and looking at their emotions from a very objective perspective. Feminine has now taken some of that point of looking at their emotions from an objective perspective, and they are now utilizing it in a practical way to try to articulate to masculine energy that while they recognize and appreciate the level and degree of stability that potentially some masculine energy is trying to bring forth to feminine right now, there could be a difference right now between what masculine is considering something that feels stable versus what feminine feels stable, because one person's stability could create another person's instability. And this is what we're seeing the feminine and masculine energy in partnership is really not in partnership, is really creating a bit more of a blockage instead of a functional point. Feminine energy is effectively even doing this right now to unburden themselves of their doubts, of their fears, of their anxieties towards a masculine energy that is coming towards them in this capacity, to help them build a better sense of understanding on what the problem is. Effectively, because what we are seeing here, and this is what we saw yesterday with the masculine energy, masculine right now is trying to come towards feminine in a space of true tangible offers, but they're feeling that blockage point. Masculine is doing everything they can. We talked about like pulling everything out of the hat right now to really try to understand what they need to provide to feminine that's going to make them feel stable. Feminine is effectively at this time trying to unburden themselves, and they found the solution. Not necessarily, and I need to stress this for feminine, I want you to really focus on this if this is what is happening today. The problem around this is feels like masculine is asking very specifically for the feminine to provide some context that would allow them to feel more stable going forward. All feminine is doing right now is articulating what they don't feel comfortable with. Because as we identified and saw with the feminine energy, feminine is not sure how to articulate and find something that is going to make them feel secure. That is the problem. Feminine's been doing that work internally themselves, and they're effectively now articulating that to the masculine energy so that they can at least understand their frame of reference and their point of view going forward. Masculine, for their part, is potentially coming into a space and place of understanding. There could even have to be a moment of acceptance right now in understanding that space and place in between these two energies. But what we appreciate and we value and see right now that is so important is masculine energy is maintaining a degree or level of hope in some of these situations and circumstances. Because what's effectively happening in these moments is masculine is understanding to a certain extent that they're not going to have to, they don't need to take the feminine energy's resistance personally. They don't need to take it personally, because more than anything, feminine is articulating right now their own anxieties and doubts and fears. Masculine is observing them right now. Masculine is observing them, and yes, it does feel somewhat bittersweet for the masculine that's experiencing this. It does feel like a little bit of a letdown because it's creating a moment or feeling of disappointment, because you're seeing right now that where you potentially find yourself in this moment is still a little hard to come towards the feminine. But what we see right now is you're not necessarily letting this act as a blockage point. You're instead utilizing some of this momentary disappointment to carve out the path for positive situations and circumstances that are going to effectively allow the feminine energy to feel more comfortable going forward. This is potentially something that cannot necessarily be addressed or fully fixed in the present moment. But the optimism that we're seeing right now for the masculine is the feeling that there's something here that in the long term is going to lead to the point of success that they're ultimately aspiring to. For masculine energy right now, this is why we find you in this modality that is feeling a little bit bittersweet, because while you're coming into this feeling a level of renewed security and stability, feeling that deepened level, this isn't necessarily the masculine having to put forward the offer to feminine right now, but this is masculine having a deeper understanding of security and stability coming through today, but also feeling a bit of frustration, also feeling a little bit more of this blockage, because this is, we're getting here from the masculine to a certain extent. This is almost feeling like a little bit of, it's like a minor victory. It's like a minor point of success. It's like a movement in the right direction that's progress for progress's sake, even though it doesn't feel like complete satisfaction on the part of the masculine that's really trying to drive forward right now in terms of your plans, your creative aspirations, or even your passion at this time. Because we're still getting to a certain degree from the feminine right now, a little bit more of that hold kind of energy, hold back. But there's productive conversation effectively happening today in feminine, articulating and identifying what the problem is. Now, for the energy that's in partnership, there could even be this is actually also coming through in partnership at this moment. There's going to be more discussion around this, but it's not necessarily going to potentially be around the relationship itself. It's going to be more around practical matters, okay? It's going to be more around something that feels like a very practical matter, something that needs to be adjusted and accommodated for potentially. Now, let's see if we can get some clarification on what we're seeing here. Clarification between our King of Pentacles in combination with our Nine of Pentacles in its reversal. So this is that dividing line right now between masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy is feeling a little bit more stable today. You're going through a moment right now and you're building and you're focusing on your own stability. This isn't to say for the masculine that there isn't something here that requires some adjustment and accommodation. In fact, this could be masculine energy putting a lot of concern right now into practical matters that require your time, effort, and energy, because there's something around your immediate environment right now that you may identify needs some point of repair. This could also be some of that busy work energy we see, especially if you're like a handyman or fix-it today. This may be really coming through right now as it relates to the energy that's around you right now. You may be feeling a little bit of that hankering today, masculine energy. For feminine energy, this is potentially articulating your own points of frustration in your immediate environment towards the masculine energy. Having to effectively take, for the feminine right now, if you're in partnership, this is potentially similarly observing some of these things, getting a little nitpicky around your immediate environment or situations or circumstances. For feminine today, a lot of conversation to masculine in practical matters about what they're not comfortable with, what requires some state or place of easement. For the masculine and feminine energy, as I said, this is going to be more on the practical perspective today. For the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership, this is identifying the hurdle that is blocking the partnership. This is feminine and masculine potentially moving into a state or place of conversations today, of masculine talking about what they're offering, the stability and security that they've been trying to really give evidence to the feminine on, really trying to prove to the feminine that they're in this stable, supportive way. Feminine giving all articulation and anxiety and fear as to whether that is the case, really potentially articulating to masculine that while something feels very comfortable and secure for masculine, that there's something to feminine that doesn't feel the same way. Feminine is potentially really doing a lot to try to let masculine understand that today, even potentially helping them understand that they see the fact that masculine's trying to come forward in this capacity, but it doesn't necessarily fix the problem of how feminine is experiencing it. clarification between these 2 points right now is we have here the Page of Cups. And so this is actually very funny, because what we're really seeing is happening right now is there's a moment that masculine energy is seeing a lot of these anxieties and doubts and fears coming out to play in the feminine energy. And masculine solution to the situation or circumstance is effectively to look at the feminine energy and say, maybe you need to lighten up. This is a masculine energy effectively looking at the feminine and saying, like, look on the bright side. Let's just keep things in a positive space. Like, let's not get too overwhelmed, too overly consumed. Almost trying to come into a state of easement, because what masculine is potentially seeing right now is feminine energy potentially coming in and having a little bit of this like disaster mindset, potentially like looking at situations and circumstances and over stressing them, coming into a sense of like overwhelmingly stressing, almost like worst case scenarioing everything that they're looking at right now, which is exactly what we find the feminine energy doing right now coming out of this Venus in retrograde cycle. Because as we said right now, feminine energy is moving from a space of deep protection, working very much right now in terms of navigating those spaces and places where they feel seen and appreciated while trying to avoid traumas from the past. That is leading a little bit to the feminine energy right now, potentially, you know, looking at things in like the honestly worst way possible, like taking something to like the most worst possible conclusion to a certain extent. That's how masculine energy is potentially seeing the feminine energy that is in this space. Feminine energy, for their part, is trying to articulate to masculine the reason that feminine energy feels like they're worst case scenarioing it is because feminine energy has experienced the worst case scenario. This isn't an over dramatization for feminine. This is feminine potentially having to articulate to the masculine and say, this isn't me over dramatizing something. This is something that actually has happened. It's happened to me. It's happened to my friend. It happened to my cousin. It happened, you know, like even if it's not necessarily around the feminine energy right now, feminine energy is trying to articulate to the masculine the degree and severity of their anxieties and doubts and fears at this time. Masculine energy is coming through right now in terms of 2 different ways of solving that. Stability and easement. Just really trying to come into a state of easement and almost like trying to allow that point of easement to help clarify to the feminine energy that this isn't something that needs to be taken so seriously, that it's just something that like is just kind of fun, is just kind of playful, to come back into a more playful space. However, this might not necessarily be the right approach right now for the masculine, because we're seeing here that it might not necessarily do a lot to help ease the feminine's anxieties in this way. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in partnership, this is masculine energy effectively like there's a mutual conversation right now potentially as it relates to what the feminine needs that needs to be repaired or worked on, and what masculine energy is feeling a little comfortable on. There could even be a moment right now that feels like a little bit of tension in partnership, because feminine may be identifying something right now that they feel needs to be adjusted or accommodated for. Masculine isn't feeling that same level of excitement and degree to do so, but is instead coming into a space where they're just looking for them spaces and places of leisure. So this could be kind of some difficulties or arguments in terms of what's happening in partnership right now about what needs to get done immediately versus something that masculine energy may be identifying as something that can kind of be put off to a later point. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between the 9 of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our 6 of Swords in its reversal. So again, feminine energy, I need to point out and dictate, one of the reasons that the feminine energy is putting so much of this care and observation right now in the immediate environment that's around them is because they're trying to come into a state of easement. Feminine energy, as we've been seeing, has been doing this work on their own level and degree over the last few days. Feminine energy realizes that they're trying to shed their own doubts, fears, anxieties from the past at this moment. The problem is it's a little bit difficult to do so, especially because for feminine today, there's a lot of anxiety and doubts and fears around your own immediate environment, potentially coming out to play. Some of those doubts and fears are actually creating a point of frustration in this moment around your immediate environment. For feminine, this is actually taking the space in the practical space today. There could be some practical work that you're doing right now, feminine, in your space to make things a little easier for you as you go forward from this point. For Matt, this could even be right now, I'm getting here, there's a lot of kind of energy here of kind of like cleaning things or moving things or getting things out. Like I'm almost seeing here for feminine energy, getting things out of your immediate space that you feel bring up bad memories is what I'm seeing here. That's very important to keep in mind as well. Something that may be occurring today for feminine, because again, feminine energy is trying to relieve those past pains. Come into a space of shedding and letting go. For masculine right now, this is also a moment that you yourself are also potentially trying to come into a state of easement. You are trying to shed some of this feeling of grief or loss that you've been carrying with you at this time. This may also be putting a lot of care and degree in your own immediate environment today. So masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership, we're seeing a lot of this happening on both levels. Masculine, I will point out though, there's something coming through much stronger about trying to build situations and circumstances that are allowing a care and degree of easement for the feminine energy that may help them to do so. Because one of the things that masculine is experiencing right now is the fact that the feminine won't let them come towards them with offers at this moment, right? This is where we see the masculines trying to do some of that easement. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with ideas. We love to see this. New opportunities, new inspirations, new surges of creativity that are being opened and unlocked here. There's something really important that's happening here, because even this movement right now into frustrations being articulated allows for the possibility of new opportunities and new communication to start. For feminine, this is allowing some of this release of the past, release of the grief to actually come forward in a very tangible way today. And you're almost allowing this to be a moment that you're unburdening yourself from these griefs and doubts in the past and embracing some of the new qualities and opportunities that are coming to you at this time. This is almost feeling like doing this is feeling very cleansing to the feminine right now, because whether they're doing it in an articulate way, whether they are voicing to the masculine energy what they do and do not feel comfortable with, even that is a bit of that release process. So this release process for feminine is either going to be happening right now in terms of their communication to masculine, articulating the difference in terms of what they are and are not comfortable with, or it's going to be a moment for the feminine that you are doing this on an internal level. You are moving things away from yourself that are causing grief. You may even be finding tangible expressions to do that are almost immediately allowing some new inspiration to come in. So we love this type of energy because it's almost like unlocking this moment that has been feeling like a bit of a blocker for the feminine through this retrograde period that we've been experiencing. For masculine, this is, if you're experiencing this on the part of the feminine right now, this is effectively allowing for a new productive conversation to come through. For feminine, articulating right now, because what we saw before, masculine was putting forward offers. Feminine has been very resistant in responding and receiving them. Feminine energy is now effectively in a space where they're finally activating. They are articulating potentially to the masculine energy what they are and are not comfortable with, to see if they can come into a space of easement, to see if masculine energy can come up with a solution that navigates between the space of what masculine is comfortable with versus what is feminine is comfortable with. Masculine is seeing the fact that this is an opportunity, that this isn't necessarily a moment, if you're experiencing this masculine, where you recognize that this is an energy that is pushing you away. There's something here about the feminine articulating to you in this way that helps you understand that they are seeking a solution. And recognizing that is going to allow for some spaces and places of productivity today. For the masculine and feminine energy right now that is in partnership, this is going to feel a lot more about mutual moments, putting your heads together to really identify the situations and circumstances that may feel need some kind of practical adjustment point, all to come up with new ideas to allow things to be easier going forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Six of Swords in its reversal, in combination with our Five of Cups, in combination with our Four of Wands. This is a little bit of that bittersweet energy that we're going to see today. because there's a moment right now that is a lot of unburdening of grief for both masculine and feminine energy. There is a recognition point right now of wanting to let go of the past, releasing the pain of the past. But that is also taking a point of observation in the fact that that is something that is actively happening, and it's requiring time. For a lot of energy, potentially even energies from the past that are trying to move back into partnership at this moment, if this is where you find yourself in this collective, this is a moment that you may be observing that someone isn't necessarily there yet. But what you're potentially seeing is while someone isn't necessarily there, that doesn't mean that there isn't some hope for the future, because we see here that this is basically an articulation point of energy saying that they are trying to release the doubts and fears. There's articulation on the doubts and fears, specifically from feminine today, identifying to masculine what they are and are not comfortable with, but recognizing that that letting go process is going to take time. And there's some kind of silver lining here. There's some kind of silver lining that is moving through these experiences right now that again is feeling bittersweet, because we see the grief of the moment in terms of potentially masculine understanding the perspective of the feminine at this time, but also understanding and maintaining the possibility that there is some kind of change that can occur here. Masculine energy may even be putting their head together right now to see how they can ease the doubts and fears of the feminine. For feminine, this is simultaneously the same feeling, that this letdown kind of energy with a potentially a possibility of something better moving forward right now is something that you are embodying. You've been embodying this whole time. This is something where, again, this isn't the situation where feminine wants to find themselves in this place. Feminine doesn't want to be carrying this grief. Feminine doesn't want to be carrying this anxiety. Feminine's doing everything they can to shed it. But still, they do recognize that that is a process that is still actively happening. But feminine is maintaining a sense of optimism that is something that can be accommodated as they continue forward. So there's some kind of possibility here that's effectively staying open. Masculine and feminine energy in partnership right now, this is that moment that is just kind of feeling like a little bit of a letdown. It's something about this right now is feeling like something needs to be addressed on a practical level. Masculine is something perfectly fine around it. Feminine is in a space where they're discussing their discomfort around something. Some changes need to be made is what there's going to be. There's almost like a compromise energy that is coming through on this right now. And this could even be feeling from the masculine, trying to do something in order to ease the feminine's energy in terms of how they're feeling right now. That could be feeling a little disappointing, but you're keeping your optimism in terms of things in this future being better. So this could be a lot of practical situations that partnership energy is discussing right now to help come into that state of easement as you go forward from this point. May I please have one card to clarify? Is that the card? Come out. Clarification coming through right now. Everything's about ideas right now. This is masculine energy. Again, we're seeing here, and this is very interesting and funny in partnership, because in partnership, we're seeing a lot of masculine. Potentially, you're going to be feeling like feminines coming to you a lot right now with a lot of things that they're not necessarily comfortable with, things that need to be adjusted, things that need to be changed. Masculine energy, what we're really seeing here is a moment that you might not necessarily feel like you can immediately fix those situations and circumstances that they're not comfortable with, but you're certainly putting your head to it. You're certainly putting your head into the game in terms of trying to figure out how to resolve it. Masculine energy is effectively, again, maybe potentially putting for feminine energy. Okay, I got to stress this. This is kind of funny right now is what we're really seeing, because for the masculine energy that's in this modality, we're seeing here that there's something that you may recognize needs some adjustment. Feminine is also potentially pointing out to you that it needs adjustment. The problem is you're moving into a state of easement. You really don't feel like doing it today, is what we're seeing for partnership energy. You just feel like effectively relaxing. So the solution for the masculine energy here is, instead of actually doing something, potentially coming up with a lot of ideas that you're giving to the feminine that is potentially going to help push something into the future. It's going to push something into the future, being like, I have a plan. I know what I'm going to do. This is what we're going to do. And you're utilizing that right now to kind of create this space and place that you don't necessarily need to take care of it today, is what we're really seeing for the masculine and feminine energy that's in partnership. For feminine energy, you might be recognizing this in the masculine right now. Again, you're giving them a problem, they're coming up with a solution, but you're also noticing that whatever that solution is isn't potentially something that they're going to do today, but they're talking about doing it in the future. So just keep that in mind. But for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership, this is going to feel a little bit more dramatic, because what we're really seeing here, sorry, it's just a different vibration. For masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is that challenging space. But this is also why masculine is feeling and maintaining a level and degree of positivity here in these experiences that they're having right now with the feminine energy that is pointing out to them to a level and degree that there's something that they're not comfortable with in terms of accepting the masculine's offer at this moment. Masculine energy is utilizing this as a fertile ground to come up with new ideas, new strategies, new communication. Masculine energy is almost, in a certain extent or degree, kind of recommitting themselves to this path ahead, simply because there's something about the articulation of the feminine energy and being able to identify what they are and are not comfortable with at this time that is re-encouraging and reinvigorating the masculine energy. It's giving the masculine energy something to work with. And one of the things here that the masculine energy is utilizing as something to work with is the fact that the feminine energy is communicating with them in this capacity, because this, as we saw, could even be a situation or circumstance where this energy was recognizing or not feeling the fact that this energy was communicating to them at all. We've been seeing a huge amount of stagnancy in the feminine energy around these zones right now. So for masculine, this is really kind of looking at this as something that is giving them something productive to work with. For feminine, this is that identification point that's potentially happening right now, because while there may be a moment right now there you are voicing your own doubts, your own fears to the masculine, you're not doing this as a point of accusation. You're doing this as a point of helping you try to release the grief around these circumstances and situations. It is feeling like a moment that is helping you feel like your own grief is truly being seen and recognized. That's what feminine energy really needs here. They need their own grief and trauma to be recognized, understood, and thereby helping them understand that the masculine energy is in that same emotional capacity here. They're looking for that understanding from the masculine. Masculine energy is ideally identifying right now if the masculine energy can relate to where they are, can understand what they're seeing, and that is building right now for feminine that path forward that could potentially lead to productivity, because there's something very valuable, important here that is allowing some sort of sea change, which is the fact of feminine being able to articulate upon their doubts and fears and recognizing whether the masculine takes that as an act of aggressiveness, which it is not, versus an act of allowing for something productive to be changed or adjusted that's going to lead to a better long-term future scenario. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Between, where were we? Which one of these cards was together? Yes. Between our Five of Cups in combination with our Four of Wands, some of that bittersweet energy that we're seeing here, something that may feel like a frustration point in the present moment, but that you feel very optimistic can be adjusted for in the future. In combination with the Knight of Wands, this is going to feel a little bit more frustrating for the masculine today, because this could be feeling, masculine, like there is a desire that you have right now. It's not that it's being declined upon. It's not that you're not able to really reach it. It means that there's something here that potentially feels a little postponed right now for the masculine. And this could be feeling right now some points of frustration, because it's requiring you to a certain extent to have to hold in terms of moving forward in some area as it relates to communication or passion or your desires at this time. For feminine, this is potentially still holding some of this masculine energy at a bit of a distance, but helping the masculine energy truly identify and understand why you are doing so, with the aspiration that doing so will allow for something more positive and productive going forward. For masculine and feminine energy in partnership right now, this is potentially having to identify and discuss what we are seeing right now in terms and in relation to the fact that there are some moments in the present moment that don't feel ideal, but there could potentially be a lot of plannings on how to accommodate and fix that going forward. Masculine, again, it feels a little bit of a blocker for you today because something about this feels like it's not necessarily letting you kind of do the things that you want to do today to the full desire or degree that you want. It's almost like someone trying to get you to do something that you're not in the mood to do is what we're really seeing in terms of partnership energy right now. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Ace of Swords in its reversal. This is that moment I need to stress. This is more of that bittersweet energy that we are seeing right now. Because what we are seeing specifically right now is this fact that masculine and feminine is experiencing a moment right now that feels bittersweet. There is a sense right now of surrender, but the surrender is leading to a deeper victory. For feminine energy right now, this is that surrendering, is the surrendering and the opening up to the masculine about how you are feeling right now. It's articulating upon some of these doubts and fears right now. It almost feels to the feminine energy like a bit of a surrender because feminine energy has recognized to a certain extent that this is a process that they've been trying to navigate within the self at this time. They haven't been able to do it. That's why they were hesitant. That's why they're not communicating. So this act of surrender is effectively the feminine having to articulate the fact that they haven't figured out how to let go of some of this grief, some of this anxiety, some of this fear. That in itself, to feminine, admitting that to masculine is a form of surrender because feminine's been trying to do this on the internal level. But it's also leading to something that feels productive here, because it's leading to some deeper conversation in terms of understanding, the masculine being able to understand where they find the feminine at this time. For masculine, this is also that moment that feels like a bit of a bittersweet surrender, because for the masculine, this is that understanding right now potentially of what the problem is, why something is moving the way it is, why you've been experiencing the blockages that you have. This is having you finally, like it's almost like a point of victory in getting to the heart of the matter, if you will. And it feels bittersweet because it feels a little disappointing because something about realizing, having this perspective on what feminine is seeing from you in terms of what you're trying to offer and how it is being observed, or the anxieties and fears that the feminine is experiencing around it, feels like a bit of a setback. It feels like a bit of a disappointment. It actually is almost creating a sense of grief for the masculine right now, because even understanding something about the feminine energy's own doubts and fears right now feels like a bit of a blow to the masculine. Like there's almost like a wound that it creates in terms of understanding the masculine to a certain degree or capacity may not have recognized that this was not the intention of the masculine to come forward in this way or to be viewed in this way. But there's also a recognition and understanding on why that might be the case. There's a deeper understanding at the heart here of masculine effectively understanding, and to a certain degree that's almost creating a little bit of a back off right now. It's creating a moment of masculine kind of moving back, especially if they've been trying to push forward in the realms of passion, in terms of saying like, I get it. It's almost deflating the masculine energy's own like desire at this time, because that observation of grief feels like it is so large. But masculine energy is almost getting fortified at that same time, because that understanding is almost becoming a shared grief. And there's a point right now of really trying to articulate and clarify what that long-term future possibility could be that would help the feminine energy move out of that state of grief. Hence, again, a momentary surrender. Something that feels like a momentary setback for the masculine, but doesn't feel like it is ultimately a long-term blockage. Masculine and feminine energy today that's in partnership, this is more of just like having to surrender to somebody, having to do something in the future that they might not necessarily have been eager to do. This is much more on a practical level. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between the Page of Cups in combination with our Ace of Wands energy. This is giving a lot of the degree of where we see the masculine energy moving into right now. Masculine energy, you've been holding this point of stability all week. It's not surprising to see the fact that the masculine energy is looking for a space or place of decompression. Masculine energy, you may even be trying to distract yourself from some of these situations and circumstances today that are feeling so heavy, that are carrying so much gravitas. And we're seeing that that is that moment where you may be looking for opportunities right now for play and easement. This could be going into the situations or circumstances of things that like you just enjoy doing that create a nice distraction at this time, but also like kind of fuel your own creativity and your own passion at this time. This is almost like, again, there's almost that point of relief now in terms of understanding where the feminine is, that's allowing you a point of easement coming in. Even that recognition and understanding is allowing a certain level of degree of play to come through. It's like a hard conversation that occurs that then immediately allows for a breakthrough point, like almost like a cloud break, in terms of like getting into a space or place with feminine in trying to move things into something that feels more fun, playful, casual, pulling the feminine energy into that modality to a certain extent. Maybe even, again, a lot of conversations in feminine towards them right now in terms of helping them identify and articulate not to need to take things so seriously right now. For masculine energy, for feminine energy right now, this is potentially identifying that the masculine is doing this. The only problem around this right now that potentially could happen around the feminine energy is the fact that you may feel a little frustrated that something that feels like it's a big deal to you doesn't feel like it's a big deal to the masculine energy. You know, there's a point here that we see the masculine energy is trying to but I need to stress here, this is because masculine energy is effectively trying to do this on purpose. They're trying to get you in a modality where we're taking it so seriously is what we're seeing. But again, even for the energy right now that is not in partnership, this is masculine kind of easing back to a certain extent. Just trying to come through and make it clear to the feminine that they don't need to take things as seriously, because feminine, they're recognizing to a certain extent that feminine kind of needs that break. They need that point of easement. May I please have one card to clarify? Healing. Healing. I need to stress, if any feminine's feeling like this right now, if you're feeling like the masculine energy that has had will have like a bit of a sea change today and come through in like a lot more of a playful manner, it's because masculine energy is effectively understanding where you're feeling these anxieties right now. They're understanding now that you've effectively unburdened and clarified to them that something that they feel stable in does not feel stable to you. And you've kind of again, potentially articulated to them all the reasons that that is the case. Masculine energy is effectively trying to come into a space and place right now to reassure you that those worst case possibilities aren't going to happen. And they're trying to do it by pulling back, by easing back, by allowing things to kind of move in a vibration that feels more, again, playful, just around desire, just around creativity. And this is a modality right now that masculine is trying to move into to try to ease and heal the connection. For feminine energy, you may be experiencing some of this shift today. Feminine energy, you're also kind of in this moment, again, where even this could feel like a little difficult for you, because feminine energy is deep in their own healing process right now. They're moving in a space or place of being very careful and cautious. So even here, some of this vibration of masculine coming towards you in this way may be something that you look at with a level or degree of hesitancy and trepidation, because even that, and this is where the feminine energy needs to work on these modalities to a certain extent. Feminine energy is moving, again, with a lot of care and consideration, not necessarily in terms of what may feel fun, but what they feel is truly best for them at this moment. Masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership at this time, this is going to feel a little bit more carefree and easy. You're already in the partnership. There is this point of support. You could just necessarily kind of be navigating right now the fact that masculine needs some spaces of decompression, because that's a part of their healing journey. That's what effectively could be happening right now for masculine to communicate to feminine, that there's something here that allows masculine energy, that sense of being carefree and being their most authentic self and being able to be in a state or place of play is what is healing for the masculine. And there may be some articulation point to the feminine that may be trying to take things into a more serious note right now for the masculine if you're in partnership. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Wands in combination with our King of Wands. So masculine, this is very interesting energy that we're seeing here today, because this is actually talking. I need to stress this. This is really intriguing, because what we're really seeing is while there may be a momentary setback that you are experiencing in some realm that feels somewhat bittersweet, some kind of desire that you have today that is effectively being put off. It's not the fact that it isn't going to happen. It's feeling like it's something that you have to kind of wait on right now. It's actually fueling, immediately creating a new sense of vitality in the realm of your creative center right now. It's almost like that. I have to stress for the masculine, there's almost something here that you're taking that frustration and you're channeling it into anticipation. This is going to be a very important watchword for today and the masculines in this collective. That taking any sense of frustration today and channeling it into productive anticipation is going to leave you with a surfeit of creative, inspirational energy that you can then put forward today. Don't let this become a blockage point. Let this become a point that inspires you, is the true message right now for the masculine energy. For feminine as well, this is potentially recognizing or seeing this right now. Potentially if you are if you're not in partnership at this moment, you may notice right now that this delivering of this information to the masculine doesn't necessarily stop them or block them. Or you may be experiencing right now that feminine, this could be happening in one of two different modalities. That for some of the feminine energy right now, this is that masculine energy stepping back, going back along their way, coming into a state or place where they kind of validate the fact that you felt that they were just coming to you from a sense of their own delight. For the other part of the feminine collective right now, this is that point in seeing that while you have to deliver this information to masculine, seeing if it still captivates their interest. Because again, this isn't a no coming from the feminine. This is the feminine energy articulating their own doubts and fears. Feminine energy is effectively utilizing this moment to see what it inspires in the masculine. If articulating their doubts and fears sends the masculine energy packing, sends the masculine energy into a space of just going back to their own business and what feels good to them, or if it reaffirms the masculine energy a degree and commitment to try to continue in the path of communication. May I please have one card to clarify? For partnership energy, this is just coming up with ideas in terms of how to resolve any immediate practical matters going forward today. Chariot energy. We love to see this card coming into play today because what this is really doing is this is utilizing a disparity between 2 points to identify if there can be a point of navigation merging going forward. For feminine, there's something really important here that's happening in the articulation of your own anxieties and doubts and fears at this time. You're not articulating these just to nag the masculine energy. You are articulating them to help the masculine energy observe the difference between what feels stable and secure to them versus what feels stable and secure to you. To be able to identify if this masculine can come up with a solution that will allow you to navigate together going forward. Feminine and masculine energy that's doing this right now. If you're in partnership, this is some of that collaboration energy that we love to see in a divine union. You're putting your heads together. You're going forward in this way. It's leading you to new understandings, new solutions together, which is allowing for greater victory. Now, even through a point of frustration. For the masculine and feminine energy not in partnership right now, this is potentially some of that moment that's helping you navigate whether there is a chariot moment possible. Okay, because what we're really seeing here is masculine is showing the feminine what they feel secure about. They're trying to validate the security and stability of an offer. Feminine is trying to articulate to masculine right now how what they consider stable does not feel stable to the feminine. They're articulating as to why. Feminine is not doing that to say no. Feminine is doing that to see how they can shed that grief, to see if there's a way that that grief or that fear that they've been trying to release can be released. Masculine energy is in this point of observing that. And now feminine energy is waiting to see where masculine energy falls on it. If the observation of what they've told them requires or leads them to move away from feminine, then feminine's going to take that as validation right now, that that was an energy that was just navigating a space and place of their own interest and their own desires, versus an energy that is effectively going to look at what the feminine brought them at this point and try to come up with a solution. Utilize this as a point of positivity, to inspire new ideas, to inspire a new course of action, to allow it as a point of course correction. which then gives feminine energy confirmation that this is chariot energy. This is a unifying energy that wants to collaborate with the feminine to find a solution going forward. Masculine, this is at that moment that you may potentially be feeling challenged to do so at this time. A lot of your own observations in terms of whether you feel that this is possible or not is really coming into alignment right now with what you're receiving from the feminine. The big question for masculine right now is really going to be whether you feel like this is a situation or circumstance that you have a solution for, or whether it is something that is unavoidably impossible for you to effectively do. There could be a lot of conversations right now in terms of the masculine energy trying to articulate and communicate this to feminine right now. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Wands in combination with our Knight of Wands in its reversal, in combination with our Ace of Swords in its reversal. What we're really seeing here to a certain level and degree is the fact that for masculine energy right now, this is where we're seeing this is feeling like a lot of a bittersweet day today, because what we're seeing in terms of this bittersweetness for masculine energy is, as we said, there's something here that feels like it's a little bit of a setback. Something here is being postponed, something that you were desiring. It's not that it's not coming about, it's that it's going to be pushed forward a little bit. But we also see that at the same time, it's almost leading you to a moment of still feeling a lot of inspiration, because you're recognizing to a certain extent that this isn't something that is being held away from you. It's just something that's being pushed forward to a certain degree. And that's allowing you almost a renewed vitality even as it's happening, because you're not looking at it as like a battle lost. You're looking at it as a moment that feels like a momentary setback, but that in alignment to everything else, everything is moving kind of in the direction that you want it to go. And that's giving you some degree of confidence in terms of planning for how to adjust and accommodate in the future due to that understanding and observation. For feminine, this is effectively that moment. This is that make or break moment that we're effectively seeing that feminine is reaching right now, because feminine is effectively opening up to masculine around their doubts and their fears, their anxieties, the limitations between what masculine is coming through with that feels stable versus what doesn't feel stable to feminine right now. And feminine is utilizing this to help them identify if this is a masculine that is truly committed to communication and planning with the feminine energy, hence finding a solution to the problem, or if this is masculine energy that is only serving their own needs, only serving their own passions, if this is validating and confirming to the feminine energy that the reason that some of this energy is coming towards them right now is not because there is a concern about where the feminine is emotionally, but something that is just serving their own passions, in which case this will send the masculine energy away, thereby, again, feeling like a bit of a bittersweet victory for feminine, because it may potentially reaffirm to the feminine that that is what is happening. This is a hard choice for feminine to be making right now, because this is a hard truth that feminine is going to be able to identify today based on where they find the masculine that they're going through this with. Feminine energy didn't want to have to bring it to this point, is what I'm really seeing. Feminine energy wanted to be able to do this internally. This is how the feminine energy is effectively recognizing that, because in either way, they recognize that this is a point of the disappointment that they themselves didn't want to share or articulate, now potentially validating the fears of the feminine. May I please have one card to clarify? Wow, that's true. You guys are not going to like the fact that this card came up transverse. This card came up transverse because this is the collective split. This is the collective split. This is where the masculine energy, potentially not in partnership, this is where the splitting's occurring. Because for some of the masculine energy, this is going to happen. For some of the masculine energy today, you may be experiencing a moment with what you're being communicated with, what's articulated to you is that moment that you're like, I can't fix that fear. I don't, like, you're not, you might even potentially misunderstand what's being said to you. You may be misunderstanding in terms of the fact of the feminine energy communicating in this capacity as feeling like a point of confusion and a point that you don't necessarily recognize potentially that this is what is occurring. You may be taking this as an ego blow, as opposed to a feminine energy that is seeking a solution to a problem that they themselves don't have the answer to. If you go into that route, then yes, this potentially could be a breakage point, because it's affected your ego so much right now that you're taking it personally. For the other part of the collective right now, this is a moment that even as you're in this place and space, the masculine energy, you're potentially proceeding in a moment that feels like a little bit of a standstill. It's creating a space or place right now, whereas we're seeing there is something here that can't require immediate action. There's something here that is really coming through right now, that even for the energy that wants to show this level or degree of commitment, there's also a moment that feels to a certain extent that you have to kind of be in a bit of a hold space. So this is going to be like a bit of a challenging space right now for masculine. Could be very great from a creative level, from a passion level right now. There could be a lot of communication happening, but there is a level and degree right now of the masculine having to feel like they need to weigh what they can do to really prove to this energy their own integrity at this moment. So masculine, this is going to feel like a little bit of a stumbling block today, because there's something here that, like, again, it's feeling, this is some of that triggered energy that we've been seeing. For feminine right now, this is potentially feeling the anxiety of not knowing what the result is going to be towards masculine that you're moving towards in this capacity. Because again, this is a moment where even what you're articulating right now, you're not necessarily telling the masculine energy what you want them to do or how you want them to do it. You're leaving something a little open-ended. It's almost giving them a problem that doesn't necessarily have an immediate solution. And you could be experiencing and seeing that right now from the masculine energy that's in that space or place. Because masculine energy, again, you're either looking at this as something that's going to send the masculine energy away, but even with the masculine energy that doesn't necessarily move away, that utilizes this as a point of communication, one of the things you could be effectively experiencing is masculine saying, like, what can I do? How do we fix this? Like, also, like, almost continuing to push the point and saying, I need you to articulate to me what I can do. Like, a lot of that is going to potentially happen today. Continuing to get clarification on these cards today between our Devil card in its reversal in combination with our Chariot energy. We love to see these two cards in combination because right now it's not about the fact that you're trying to move forward in a space or place that feels that it is unhealthy. There's a deep concentration right now in terms of unifying energy to move forward into positive, productive spaces. But there's also a deep sense of orientation and connection in terms of identifying what feels like it is healthy and productive and positive versus spaces and places that feel like they're not moving into a space or place that is creating that level or degree of positivity in terms of that. There's going to be a lot of identification right now in terms of what is not working, but all for the sense of healing and having that better alignment going forward today. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our star energy. All of this is being done right now. Again, and this is beautiful. Feminine energy is trying to maintain and move in a space of vulnerability and authenticity. What's effectively happening right now and what we're effectively seeing is this moment that feminine energy is utilizing this point to be their most authentic expression of self, even potentially opening up to masculine around their own doubts and fears at this time. Feminine energy is getting a source of empowerment by doing this because even doing so is allowing a state and place of healing. Masculine, there's something about this process that you are also recognizing. You are seeing the fact that the feminine energy is embodying these qualities. It is also very empowering for you potentially to see this, though again, it could feel a little bit distance making. The star energy recognized in the feminine can sometimes feel like that energy is a bit at a distance. It is a bit isolated from you. But what we're really seeing here for the masculine energy that is identifying that this is occurring, we see that this is almost a moment that feels like it is creating a healing moment between you and this energy that is allowing a capacity of being able to move forward towards it with a deeper level and sense of conviction. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between the Chariot and our King of Swords in its transverse. So again, a little bit of tricky energy here for masculine, because masculine, there's something here that you're allowing a degree and capacity of coming into alignment with, but it could feel a little bit tricky right now, especially if you're in the modality or you're used to kind of being able to set the pace and rhythm for things right now. Because what's potentially happening right now, if you're on this journey, is you're learning the difference in terms of being someone who gets to call the shots going forward versus being in a space or place that you're unifying your efforts and energies to be able to come up with mutual solutions in terms of how to go forward from here. For some of the masculine collective, this is going to be feeling like a very empowering moment, but a difficult moment to navigate because this is something that you may be potentially learning. For the other part of the masculine energy right now, this could be feeling like a deep struggle point for you, because this is a moment that you have to effectively look towards the feminine energy right now and say, do you have the capacity and ability to unify? Are you in a space where you're ready to come into union with feminine so that you guys can align in terms of that path going forward? Or are you still trying to hold and maintain a level of degree of autonomy at this time? Something that is allowing you to be able to call all the shots, but stand very much in your own isolated energy. May I please get one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the Emperor in its reversal. This is a little bit of that split energy that we're seeing right now for masculine, because this is some difficult, hard work that's effectively occurring right now. Masculine energy, one of the things that you're effectively working through right now is this feeling of having to move in union with collective energy at this time. If there is a feminine right now that you're experiencing some of these difficulties or challenges with, this is a moment, and this is where I'm saying that for some of you, this may be feeling like too much of a leap for your own ego at this time. Because there's something about having to come into this sense and space of collaboration, assisting the feminine energy in finding some of this solution, having them articulate their needs and not taking it from a space of a criticism, but instead as a point of productivity to find the solution to the problems. It is feeling like either one of two different scenarios is occurring in this way. Either you are utilizing this in your understanding, not to take this personally, but to use this as a fertile ground through which to build a combined effort to come into a state of easement. It's feeling like a little bit of an ego death to do this for the masculine, because it's requiring you to have to potentially make some accommodations. Okay? For the other part of the masculine energy right now, this is a moment that this may feel like a bridge too far. You may feel like you are not ready to do this because there's something that you are recognizing and identifying about coming into Chariot energy and unifying with other energy to align on agreed upon course and an agreed upon goal through transparency, clarity, and problem solving, and yes, adjustments, accommodations that feels like it's potentially triggering you too much because it is affecting your own autonomy. There's a moment here that is all going to come through right now in terms of how this falls, and whether you're in this space right now, masculine, to come into that Chariot energy, or if you're feeling like it is too much of a threat to your own sense of self-empowerment at this moment. So again, as I mentioned, this could feel like a little bit of an ego shock for some of the masculine that is experiencing this right now. But this is effectively where we find yourself at this point. For the masculine energy that's in divine union at this time, this is something that you may have already mastered. You're potentially recognizing the fact it's maybe feeling like a point of frustration right now, but you're also kind of recognizing that the benefits outweigh moving in a space or place of being in a point or degree of like being able to have to be able to call all the shots here, because there's something here about you. As we said, we're seeing here for the divine union energy that there's something about the masculine being asked to do something or being asked not to do something from the feminine right now that is feeling a little bit frustrating, but you're also kind of recognizing and identifying is just like kind of comes with the package of moving in a sense and state of divine partnership. Continuing to get clarification right now on these cards. Oy vey, oy vey. This is going to feel like, this is a real trigger point today, my friends. This is going to be a little bit of a trigger point between masculine and feminine energy right now. Because what we're really seeing is happening right now. We've got here the star energy in combination with the Emperor in its reversal. This is going to feel a little bit hairy even for the energy that's in partnership today, even for divine partnerships right now. Because what we're really seeing is occurring is a fact that there's something here right now, that for partnership energy, there's something right now where the feminine energy is effectively feeling, in a sense, that they're kind of calling some more shots. They're kind of like rising right now to a certain extent, where they're like making a lot of these needs mess, and they're potentially affecting what the masculine is desiring to do at this point, which is creating this moment between them where like the feminine's just trying to be authentic and open, right? But the masculine is feeling a little frustrated because something about that moment of feminine needing to like come into this space or place is feeling a little disempowering for the masculine. Even the masculine energy in partnership, this could be feeling a little bit of that frustration today, masculine. Be very gentle with yourself. You may even need to articulate to the feminine how this is making you feel. Okay, because we're seeing here that there's something here that feels like it's rubbing a little bit on your ego, even if you're in partnership at this time. So keep that in mind, masculine, okay? For the feminine and masculine energy that is not in partnership, this is going to be a real triggering day, potentially, especially for masculine energy, depending on where you fall. Because what's potentially happening right now is feminine is coming into a state or space of trying to be their most authentic expression of self. Whatever you're receiving from the feminine today, masculine, identify that this is a feminine energy that isn't necessarily trying to take a knock at your ego. This is a feminine energy that's trying to voice something from a space and place of authenticity and vulnerability. Now, the problem is, as we've indicated, there's something here that could feel like a little bit of a trip or trigger to your ego right now, masculine. So you have to be very careful around this right now, because for some of the masculine energy, we're seeing that that just might be the case. That you might take this personally, even though the feminine energy isn't necessarily trying to have you experience it on a personal level. This is not coming through right now, I'm seeing, as a barb against you. This is coming through as a feminine expressing their anxieties, looking for a point of solution. So being able to identify and articulate this right now for the masculine is potentially going to help you navigate this space so that you don't take it personally. And so that you potentially don't move from a space or place that creates that. Because we see here that with this Emperor in its reversal, this could feel like something that is coming through that feels like it challenges your own degree of self-mastery at this moment. For feminine, this is a moment that you may be feeling some of this anxiety. This could be a moment that you are presenting something to masculine, and it's creating a sense that is difficult and challenging for you because you also recognize that something that you're trying to articulate to the masculine energy may be taken the wrong way and may affect their own ego. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Hierophant in its reversal. This is requiring some unconventional solutions to effectively be found right now. This is requiring some of these unconventional solutions to come into play here. For masculine and feminine energy that's working through this right now, this could have to require you looking at things from a different way or from a different perspective. It's feeling like a bit of a challenging zone right now. But what we're also seeing that is really beautiful and lovely is that this is a moment that is allowing for some deeper alignment right now. It's allowing some new commitments to come through right now by making some accommodations and adaptability in terms of where you find yourself at this moment to identify and understand what needs to be changed going forward. Hence, again, what we're seeing in terms of the masculine energy saying that they're feeling very comfortable in a certain space, while feminine is saying, I'm not feeling very comfortable in a certain space. We have to make some accommodations. This is effectively what we're seeing coming through right now. Again, this could be feeling like a little bit of a challenging area right now, specifically for masculine. But being able to identify that is going to be very important to help you so that you don't act from a space of being triggered today, but look at this as a moment or opportunity to take different approaches to a situation or circumstance that are going to lead to better outcomes. Now, that is our read. Let's get our bottom of the deck. And for the masculine and feminine energy right now that is in partnership, this is potentially looking at some things and taking these same unconventional approaches. Bottom of the deck on today's read is Two of Swords. A lot of this energy, what we're seeing that's coming through right now, that is feeling like such a tricky part, is that this isn't something that is coming through with a solution today. This isn't something that can be immediately fixed. This isn't something that can be immediately adjusted. This is something that there's still a lot of observation and time that's needed. Feminine energy is effectively saying to masculine, I need time. I don't feel comfortable right now with this. I don't know what this is. I'm trying to identify it. I'm trying to interpret it. Feminine is requiring that time from the masculine is effectively what's coming through right now by stating their points of anxiety and frustration and fear at this moment. There's a bit that's requiring still some points of observation here. Masculine is also in that modality right now, because masculine is also identifying the fact that feminine energy is in that space and it's requiring them to also do the same. So both energies are effectively hovering in this space right now, trying to utilize their powers of observation and intuition to help guide themselves forward from this point. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it with me. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video with the option of recording sent to you afterwards. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading on my website, it is a two-step process, okay? You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you would like to have that reading. Also, most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever reach out to you for a personal reading. I will never PM you. I will never inbox you. I will never slide into your DMs and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for having this reading with me today, and we will do this again tomorrow. Guys, that was the Daily Collective Read. You know, it's a